Well, welcome all. Whoop. Go back to Rydahl. So, yes, I'm here to talk about make Java fun to use. I'm, as said, as a distinguished engineer working Red Hat. In the last 17 years, I've done crazy things like working on Hibernate Core, doing native SQL, doing Hibernate tools, Red Hat main repository, a lot of Eclipse tooling, even did some Python Home Assistant, and lately I work on Quarkus. And I mentioned this to say that I've had my share of crazy things with Java. I enjoyed it the full way, but a couple of years ago, I actually took a break away from it, tried to use Go and Node and other things. And even that frustrated so much, I even took a year off and got to see a few other things. And out of that actually came that I came back and needed to relearn Java. I've been gone for about 2 years. And out of that came a thing called JBang, which has this nice logo. And the best thing I can do to kind of show what it is or explain what it is to show what it does. So here I have an empty directory. I have JBang installed, which is a CLI I can run. And I can just go and say init hello Java, and I get a file on disk here, hello Java. I can run it, and it prints out hello world. Nothing fancy. You could do this with normal Java today, at least from Java 10, 11 upwards. But the thing that becomes interesting is if you use a bit more, if you want to use dependencies, what do you do then? Then with plain Java, you have to go and download a jar, etc. With JBang, here's a similar example. Let me just clear this so it's a bit more. There we go. Same idea, but in this, I'm using an external library called Figlet, and it will print a bit banner, a little banner. Let's do this and call it debugs UK. And it prints it out, and you go like, hey, wait, what just happened? I'll just JBang has a little cache. Let me just clear it, and let me get this back up again so you can see my screen. Wrong command. Yeah, run it again, and you'll see the first step. It actually, if it doesn't have a cache, it will fetch the dependencies, build a jar, and run it out. Print out this input. So what's different between this and single file scripting that it does exist in Java is that this works from Java 8 and upwards. It works with all kinds of dependencies, and you can build anything, which I'll get into in a few seconds. And the other thing we can do is, how do you edit in these things? If I open this file and open up in IDE, it won't know about the dependencies. So we have a command for that called JBang edit. I'm gonna type this again, and this will start up an editor. There we go. With this project loaded, I can run this as I want, or I can go and say I can do this Figlet font. So I have content assist in here. This is VS Code. So if you know VS Code, there are you can see the product here, all loaded and ready. The IDE knows that this is a Java project. And there we go. So basically, I can get started with Java very quickly, explore things immediately. And this basic stuff about having a script and can run it was the first idea of JBang, but it's evolving into a bit more. We actually have something called aliases. So I can do stuff like alias lists, JBang dev, which is a catalog. And I can see things that are here. These are not on my disk right now. For example, here's a little bouncing logo thing. I'm just going to try and run it. And this is actually a JavaFX app, which is being downloaded and run. And now we have the most boring, fancy DVD JBang thing in through. But the point is, this is just a little script loaded, uploaded, and I can run it directly, and I have this alias to refer to it. Other thing you can do is I have here, what is it, HTTPD? Oop. So if you've heard in the new version of Java, Java 18, I think, they're going to build in, what's it called, HTTP server. So you've used Python and Node.js, there's like a single line you can run an HTTP server to serve out content. So with JBang, you can do it Java 8 and upwards. You don't have to wait for Java 18. So for example, if I do that here in this project, I have an index.html, a CSV file, and some Java code. I'm just going to serve this up. So again, it's going to run this jar, and I can now, where's my, there we go. And this is actually just showing like people using JBang to check, like update JBang. But the idea is that with Java, you can also with JBang, you have these kind of small utilities you can write and make easily accessible to anyone out there. And that's the core of JBang, having these tools available to you, easy to get to. And that if you know this about JBang, you know most. But I want to get back to a bit about how we got here. And basically, I was in a that's not a dark place, but imagine you have a door sitting out there that is, everyone knows how to use the door, but it's in the back alley and it's a bit hard to get to, versus a more inviting door where you can see what's going on out there. The people is green, is light. I kind of felt that was the way Java is in the industry. Of course, everyone who knows and loves Java knows that it's not that gloomy, but it's that kind of perspective you get if you go to the other environments where things are just a bit more accessible. And those other environments are stuff like Python and Node or Go. They kind of spend a bit more time on this direct first impression environment. And what I want to do is basically make Java have the same kind of thing. And I believe with JBang, we kind of got there. So just to explain what's going on. Here's again the same examples I had before. You'll see here on the top, there's this / user bin env. That is both valid Java, it's a comment, and a shell script. These are just running env JBang and that command. This is what allows you to run it directly in Linux and Mac. You don't need it, but it is the thing that JBang got its name from. Then you have these commands like / steps, and you can have any amount of them to get dependencies. There are other commands to set options, that kind of thing. We'll see later. But this is kind of the key to get these dependencies. And you can run the code. And the magic is, which doesn't sound like much, but you can just compile and run it in one go. Like, you don't need to know about a compiler. You don't need to know about a runtime. You just need to know, hey, I can run this script. Or you can, and that's it. Right? Much easier to tinker and play with. There's no need for any VM or Java VM setup. JBang will take care of that for you. And multiple files is also not a problem. This on the screen here is like the smallest microservice on the planet, a hello world written in Quarkus. And you'll see stuff like that is referring to other classes. You can do that. You can include files into your jar saying, hey, I have index.html that goes to a specific mount point. And you can include different sources. So you can have basically any kind of single jar file kind of structure in JBang. And of course, this means that you can write small scripts, which is what JBang started out with, or full-blown applications, which is what we've been doing the last 1.5 years. Okay, so what does that bring us? Besides, I can get to run this thing very quickly. Well, this is a typical example, like a small example. How many files are here? Like 10. And what it does is it's a kubectl plugin that is written in Gradle that creates a jar, and nothing special if you already know about how Java works. But with JBang, the starting point, instead of reading this is the convention you use for in Gradle or Maven. In JBang, we can remove stuff like Gradle and JBang. We can remove all these layers of indirection that we've had. We can also have them, but we don't have to have them. And then you can also just start removing all these extra classes, which, if you look into them, are just small inner classes that doesn't need to be in the public scope. They can just be in a single file. Again, JBang will work with that complex scenario you had before. But my point is that with JBang, you kind of start from being able to be at this level of just a single file and a README, and that's it. JBang even can do this where it doesn't have to be named main.java. It will just be kubectl that's example. So if you're on Linux or Mac and you have kubectl, you can run this directly. And this is what this example does. Kubectl example pod list. It will look up kubectl example and run the thing. You see this also, like if you want to extend Git or GitHub or Docker, similar things you can do this way. And my point is that with what I managed to do with JBang is I don't have to deal with these layers like this massive, depending on how you say it, but all this is what we present to newbies out there in the world today. And all this is also what we, even if you're an advanced Java user, you're like, oh, I have to set up all this just to write 10 lines of code. JBang kind of flips that on the head and just says, no. You just need one file and you're good to go. All that other stuff is taken care of for you. And then the other part, one thing is just being able to write code and get to it. You can use Notepad if you want to, but what if you want to set up an IDE? So we have a JBang edit command, which only exists because not all IDEs in the world has picked up on JBang yet and supported natively. But what we do is when we run JBang edit, we understand how this will look for an IDE, and we kind of behind the scenes create a project that has a built Gradle file and all the files that Eclipse needs for Eclipse Java needs to understand its code. And why do we do those two things? It means that we can basically any IDE that supports Gradle, which is all like Eclipse, IntelliJ, NetBeans, etc., will just work. But also all the IDEs who understands just Eclipse, which is everyone who's using the Java language server protocol, they will work. It also has a benefit of in Eclipse, it will load faster than anything else because Eclipse supports it natively. It doesn't have to analyze the Gradle stuff. But in any case, the idea is that if you start as a new user, with JBang edit, with JBang, you can create projects, run them, and edit them without anything else configured. JBang will take care of it for you. And what we do is we install the thing called VS Code, which is a VS free version of Visual Studio Code. But if you have another editor, we will use that too. It's not like we're forcing on it. It's just to give you the option. And I forgot the NetBeans logo here, but Eclipse, IntelliJ, VS Code, Emacs, Vim, Replit, even Codespaces, GitHub Codespaces, and Gitpod, and Eclipse Che will work with a JBang project. So it's very it is after all just pure Java, and that's my point is that this closed door we have in the backyard back in the back with JBang becomes a bit more open and more accessible. And you can imagine one thing is you can get started quickly. So when I built this, I did it to we had some Kotlin scripts in our build system in Quarkus that I said, like, this is like 99% Java. Why do we need to download Kotlin to do this? But then when I had it, this JBang thing, I just suddenly, any experiment that it does, I just start with JBang. I don't have to use an IDE. I can just explore it. It's even, I can run it on any laptop out there. I don't have to have anything set up. So I can explore a new API. I can focus on the code. I can use it to report bugs. I can give us a one file example in docs to run, any kind of. It's much simpler than the typical Maven Gradle setup. Okay, so just to again, we've seen some of this stuff, but just to kind of compare, like how things works in Java typically versus how it works in JBang. And behind the scenes, what JBang does is just translate this to what Java is. So if you want to run something in Java, you can run single files. You can run Java shell by another command and another flag. It can't handle arguments. Java jar is another way you have to do to run jars. And you have Maven exec Java, Maven JavaFX run, and they all have different ways of configuring themselves. And except for Maven, they don't support dependencies unless you manually set them up. With JBang, that's just the same. Like whether you're running a Java, a JShell, even a Kotlin or a jar, it's the same way. You can pass parameters, and you'll see here XYZ JShell doesn't support parameters natively. JBang enables that for it. And debugging is nothing else but just adding a --debug. You don't have to remember all the arguments or have an IDE that can do it for you. You just add it and connect with an IDE, and off you go. The shell is just struck out because JShell in its inherent form doesn't support debugging. So that's a Java limitation that we can't work around with JBang. Yeah, so anyway, so what I want to go is like the next level, where until now we just kind of been wrapping stuff around normal Java. In JBang, you can also run artifacts directly. So here I'm running a Quarkus CLI. This could also be any other CLI you've written in Java. You can just publish to Maven Central or some other repository. You can run it this way. You can run a gist. So you can just upload code to a gist, and JBang will extract the right code and run it for you. Same thing with GitHub, or if you're into Carbon now, this nice little rendering thing that can print code. JBang will understand that URL too. I even had Twitter support at some point, just for fun, but unfortunately Twitter removed their access to you can't look at public statuses anymore without having JavaScript, which is a bit of overkill. So anyway, but you can also run a single jar. So the difference between a single jar and a Maven artifact is that with Maven, we'll resolve the dependencies, whereas with my app, we assume that jar is self-contained, which is but it can be hosted anywhere. So doesn't even have to be on a Maven Central. It could be a site like here, or it could be like a GitHub release page or something like that. And then the alias concept. I can add, here I'm saying, add an alias called Quarkus that refers to this runner thing. And now I can run it as JBang Quarkus. Or I can say JBang Quarkus.io, which is a catalog. I'll get into that in a few seconds. Yeah, and sorry. And my point is that with JBang and its run feature, which is not limited to just script files, but anything else that is like typical Java jars, you can run. Right? So even if you don't buy into, hey, it's nice to have scriptable files and these built from source kind of thing, if you have any jar out there, any CLI you want to do, with JBang, it becomes super easy to just distribute and run it. Okay, coming back to the build tools conversation, I have nothing against Maven or Gradle and Ant or whatever build tool you have out there. I just feel it should not be needed, or you're not going to need it, at least not initially. With JBang, you can do multiple files, you can put it all in, and you can run it explicitly. So you can have a pre-built jar, or you can run it and it'll build if necessary. Or even if you have Graal VM and has --native, we will try and make a native jar for it. And if you have a native jar, we will run that native binary, we'll run that instead. So you get the speed up. All kind of transparently handled for you with JBang. Other things you can do. So since JBang knows about the source files and it knows about the structure of your jars, it can make them too. So here, I've taken Minecraft. This could also be Wildfly or Tomcat or any other application server that has a jar that needs to be run or packaged. JBang export will just create a jar with a manifest that refers to the jars on your disk, and this will work in Minecraft, and you can even run Minecraft with JBang. But the point is that this could be any kind of app server out there. Same thing if you're into Lego or other some stuff where you have to deploy stuff to a robot or a container somewhere. We can create a jar that's portable, and by portable means a jar where dependencies are next to each other in a lib folder, and then you can just copy that somewhere over. And again, I'm using mine stuff just because it's more fun to talk about, but this could be any kind of jar deployment out there. Okay, and then I mentioned Quarkus also before, but the point is that you can write full enterprise microservices with JBang using Quarkus. It could also be Spring Boot or Micronaut and others. But the extra beef there is between JBang and Quarkus is Quarkus has this notion of build time enhancements. And JBang has an extension API that Quarkus hooks into, so that all the stuff you can do with Quarkus, like build a native binary and build containers and deploy them to OpenShift or Kubernetes, is possible for anything that is driven by JBang. The idea is that, again, make it accessible, make it easy to use, don't have to have 20 different files for something that we've, over the last 20, 25 years, have found out there's a good convention to do. And right now, with all these microservices and deployable jars, that's possible today, right? It's still experimental. Not everything is enabled yet, but all the basics are there. So do please, try it out and let us know if something is missing. So yeah, anyway, for building stuff, you don't need. Just don't repeat yourself. Keep it simple. That's the philosophy behind JBang compared to let's say the Java ecosystem. And again, comparing Java to JBang, when you develop something, you have to code it, commit it somewhere, build it, publish it, and ship it. And then as a user, you have to download Java, install Java, download the app, install the app, and run it. And there are reasons for doing that for some cases, but for basic stuff, for even full-blown applications, you don't need all of these. So how does it play out in with JBang? First of all, to get JBang, it's available in almost any kind of package form for Windows, Mac, and Linux, even for Raspberry Pis and other. Also, the last thing we had, like some older central machines that works. Or you can just use curl to download it and set it up. Or if you're on PowerShell with Windows, you run this kind of command. So you can get it in any kind of form or shape you want to get it running. And once you have that, and by the way, those commands actually works on Raspberry Pi, and it runs on a Docker container. It's all there. If you want to use a specific version of Java, JBang has an option that says --Java 17 or Java 8, 14, etc. It will get it for you if it's not available. So if you already have a Java on your machine, JBang will use it. If it has like --Java 17 and you have it, it will use it. But if it doesn't have it, it will download it for you. So we try and use the thing you have configured by default. But if that doesn't fit, then we will get the specific version for you. And it uses Adoptium or via Fuji. So we can download any binary that has been built there. Adoptium and Adopt OpenADK. So all from Java 8 up till the later versions. And just imagine this means that if you're writing a tutorial or a guide for something, you can just tell people to install JBang and run these examples you have, and you can tell them to run with a command line and it will just work. or you can put it into your source file. So this is an example a bit before Java 17 was the GA. If you wanted to enable records, you would have to enable preview release 14. This would work. You put that in the file, and then JBang will. You don't have to say -- Java 17. You just say JBang xyz.java, and this works for anything, whether it's an alias, a URL, a Maven artifact, that kind of thing. It will just kind of be there. Okay. Whoops. There we go. Oh, not sure why I make that one. There we go. So yeah. So let me go back again. Yeah, so the minimal step to write a JBang app is the init command. Here I'm using -t. JBang also has support for templates. I don't have time to show them, but they're there. And it will create an application, and you can code away, and you commit it. You have it then in GitHub or Bitbucket or somewhere else, and you just give the URL, and now any user can run this, right? Simplest way to distribute a Java example or a project that I know of, at least. You can also do app install of a URL, an artifact, or that kind of thing, and then you can just run my app. So this is like if you use npm install or pip install, but just for Java. Yeah, works in somewhat the same way. At least the end result is the same, that you can install anything and have it available in the past, so you don't, in your day-to-day, you can just, you don't have to know there's a JBang behind this. Okay, so anyway, this is the Java world in JBang. Coding for developer is just code and commit, and a user can just run it directly with that URL I talked about. And here's, if you don't have JBang, here's one way to get it on any system that has a bash terminal. So Windows, Mac, Linux, this will all work. Windows like VSL or Git Bash will have that. Or you can do the install step, which is app install it, and then you run it from there. Right. Okay. So Alias is just for you to understand how it works. It is just, we have a convention for looking up in GitHub and Bitbucket and GitLab. So JRuby, we look up the organization JRuby. If there's JBang catalog, we will read that, and in here you see they set up a way to run the latest JRuby version, and that enables you to do things like this, like app install, or the Quarkus, or in this case, gap search, which is a little utility to search for GAVs in the main repository. Okay, and all of this, we actually also made available little app store. So if you want to see what people have published, if you go to JBang Dev and click on App Store, there is a list of these things. And one thing, the notable one that got added lately, is Microsoft has this library called Playwright to test different browsers. And there's a little utility you can use to record your interaction with the browser, and it will give you a Java file that you can use to replay and modify and screen scrape whatever you want. And then you can just run that with JBang. But I find it really cool that the companies like Microsoft and others who are trying this out can publish ideas and small utilities this way. And something that I think we've been missing in Java for a while. Okay, and then I just want to say that JBangs makes it easy to get started. We can run anything. It doesn't have to be a JBang script. It can be anything you build with Maven or Gradle. It will just be fine. You can create projects without having to use Maven or Gradle. Just everything kind of reduced to its absolute minimum. And the way you deploy is much simpler than anything else I'm aware of, at least. There's a lot of stuff I haven't covered. We don't have time to do, but JBang supports almost everything in the Java ecosystem, at least stuff that I'm aware of. And I wanted to give a little idea in people's head is, what if these things, what I'm going to show you, doesn't exist yet, but it's been talked about and suggested by multiple people, is what if you can do JBang alias add some catalog, and then suddenly you can run JBang buildx or testx or export, like something that does custom build and test for your kind of project. These aliases can be global. They can also be local on your disk, so it can be kind of anything. Again, something that exists in NPM world in some form, or like documentation or do releases. And when I say release, I do want to mention JReleaser done by Amroy, who was here yesterday, which actually took some of the ideas in JBang on how we do build for every platform or every packaging system and generalized them. And I find it funny that he built JReleaser based on JBang. I'm now using JReleaser and JBang to release, and I might also build a JRelease tool in JBang with JReleaser. All kind of meta. So anyway, that was a very quick way through and trying to say that JBang is a better Java, at least in my opinion. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you want to help, the biggest fight I have at the moment is for people to realize that it exists and it's an alternative, and it works with both Maven and Gradle. It doesn't, ignore them, but it enables you to make it easier to just try out any kind of Java stuff out there. And yeah, that kind of concludes it. There's a ton of different ways you can get JBang, and I can only say thank you for anyone who's contributed over the last couple of years. And yeah, I think that's it. Was there any questions left?